Welcome to the Gab Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. To participate in the 2024 Book Award competitions, please visit independentpressaward.com and NewYorkCityBigBookAward.com. Today, we will be chatting with Barbara Lane, author of Broken Water, an extraordinary true story. Barbara's memoir was awarded a distinguished favorite in the 2024 Independent Press Award. Her story was featured in People magazine, and an adapted extract was printed in Newsweek magazine. Barbara describes herself as a foster child, sister, wife, mother, grandmother, entrepreneur, speaker, child advocate, educator, ministerial counselor, and author. She has been a ministerial counselor for 25 years. Her educational background is in human development, social services, and family psychology with a focus on child abuse. Broken Water is a testimony to resilience, strength, courage, and experiences in the foster care system. Barbara joins us today from the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, where she resides with Jim, her husband and childhood sweetheart. Congratulations, Barbara, and welcome to the Gab Talks.
Oh, Gabby, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Thrilled beyond words.
And we're thrilled that you decided to join us.
Yeah.
Barbara, this was really a fascinating memoir about you, your 10 sisters, whom you were separated from when you were 3 years old. Your mother abandoned you and your sisters in an apartment without heat and hot water for 3 days. Really hard to believe, until luckily a neighbor discovered you. You were then placed in an orphanage. Why don't you take the story from here for our listeners?
All right, I'm happy to. I think the story opens up with that sad story, pardon me, but goes on to tell you of the strength of bonding and attachment and the power of sibling bonding and connection. So I was 3 when all this occurred. Several of us were placed in an orphanage, yes. I didn't miss my mother because I had my sisters. And my sisters loved me, pampered me, babied me so much that for them, there was this horrible trauma of losing their mother. And they protected me from that at my young age. My trauma was when they all were placed in the foster care system. And I'd watch them leave with their little suitcases in hand. I didn't understand at that time that they were going and wouldn't be coming back, or where they were going. What 3-year-old would understand that? But they planted in me a seed that just grew to where from the age of 3, I knew I would search for my sisters until one day we were reunited 43 years later. So that's the story in a nutshell.
Well, we're going to get to that in detail because there are so many interesting elements. In Broken Water, Barbara, you did describe the incredible bonds you shared with your sisters. And you said, even though I was separated from my older sisters by the age of 3, I never forgot their names, which is amazing at 3 years old. I think that's my earliest memory as a 3, but yours seems so clear. Even said in the orphanage that your twin sisters, Mickey and Vicky, would eat the food that you didn't like off your tray so that you wouldn't have to spend the night in the dark in the orphanage's cafeteria. Incredible. So what propelled you after all those years to search for your sisters? And what stopped you from doing it earlier?
Nothing ever stopped me from my desire to locate my sisters. When I was young enough to learn my alphabet, I would look in the phone book way back then when I could sneak and do this in my foster home. I knew my last name was Lane, and I would start calling lanes that I could find. Of course, I would ask for a sister every time, but they were never home. And my young understanding of it, I really believed if I just called them, they would come and get me. I didn't have a comprehension of how they were surviving their own childhoods of trauma in the foster care system. So that kept up, most of my life into my teenage years. And then as a young adult, when I got married and my foster mother died, I felt really free to search for them maybe in deeper ways. So I hired private detectives. I got myself on adoption registries, lost family registries, because this was before DNA was available online through ancestry.com or what have you. So there were only so many ways you could find lost families. So I never gave up looking for them. I hired a private detective, as I said, but nothing ever worked. We were all girls. We all had married last names of which I had no knowledge. I didn't have any social security numbers to track them down. You know, it just was near impossible. But once in a while, I got frustrated and would take a break, I have to be honest, because it was so emotional to get close sometimes
Yeah.
and then for it not to occur.
It was almost like a miracle, really. So, but it happens, and you reunited after 43 years. Describe the reunion in one word, Barbara.
Oh, full.
Full. Full. Your heart must have been full. I can't even imagine how that felt after years of longing and dreaming and imagining what that moment would be like. Barbara, you were the voice of all 10 of your sisters in the book. In fact, it took you 15 years to write the book. I have two questions here. First, what was the most alarming discovery about your family history, the journeys of each of your siblings?
That we were 11 girls and not one of us escaped sexual abuse in our childhood. It was shocking.
That is shocking. And all at the hands of the foster families that you were each placed at?
Some were foster families. Some were family of origin uncles. Some were neighbors when my older sisters were younger. We had no protection against this event. None of us. Many of us in the orphanage. There were by priests, unfortunately, who visited and shared mass with the kids. And the rest in foster care system.
Incredible. So tell us, it did take you 15 years to write this book, to write this memoir. And you, again, were the voice of each of your 10 sisters writing their account. First, what inspired you to write the story? How did that come about?
I had a sister named Laverne who I called Bernie, because when I was younger, I was told I couldn't pronounce it, came out Bernie, and she kept that name. And she would say to me, along with a few of the other sisters, someone needs to write a book. Would you do that for us, Barbie? And I love my sisters so much. There's no way I could ever say no to anything they would ask. So I said to them, why me? And they said, because we know you can do it.
That was my next question. Why you? Now, had you written anything before, Barbara?
I've written my thesis, I've written workbooks, but never anything to this nature, which attests to the fact that, these kinds of things can happen at any time in your life, and pay attention to that desire to share through writing. I absolutely love writing at this point in time. So this was my first, big attempt at writing something that I felt could be very, very readable and would reach the hearts of those who read it. So
it's very powerful. In fact, I understand that none of your sisters, none of you actually read the book until it was printed.
Well, we have several sisters that have passed on.
Okay.
So sadly, they missed this opportunity of healing that the rest had, because, stories of childhood abuse are very hard to talk about, even with your closest siblings.
Yes.
It's very, very hard. And so while they shared their stories with me, and I wrote them down, which often took many trips, many revisions, and many of, okay, come back, I'm ready to tell you the truth. It was so painful for them to think about the things that other sisters may have gone through. It's like they could have handled their own trauma, but the desire for us all to protect each other was so strong that to listen to what the other sisters went through was almost unthinkable. But yet they wanted me to write the book. When it was published, they all got a copy right away before I could even send them one.
And what was their reaction?
Healing. total healing, tears, understanding their siblings, some of them which grew up together because they were older, in ways they never understood before, understanding what happened to our family of origin, what it meant to have that mother pain of, a mother doing something like this to you, what it meant to have a father who literally lost his life, the healing of it all. And we had a reunion shortly after that, for those of us who are still here, and the hugs and the tears and the joy that came out of this made my 15-year journey more than worthwhile, And we're all thrilled that the message is touching others as well and encouraging healing. So we get that.
How has speaking your truths empowered you now?
I think I'm a totally different person.
How so, Barbara?
Because I will tell you my truth. I will tell you the truth of child abuse. I will tell you what kids are going through today with a power that I think only comes from when you yourself, if you've had this experience, have come to terms with your own truth. This is something, even though we hear so much about child abuse, it is such a hidden thing. It is such a secret. It is such a shaming thing that you're overcoming any hint of shame. Why should you be shamed for something that happened to you through no fault of your own? No,
you're a victim and a child at that.
No fault, but it's still your responsibility to deal with it and overcome it. And that's where you change that shame into a pride.
In fact, you have said, Barbara, that your goal is to destigmatize the fate of child abuse survivors.
Absolutely.
How do you plan to do this, and why is this so important to you?
Because who should have to live with the shame of being abused as a child when it wasn't your fault? Who should have to live with that? And when you're abused as a child, it's kind of ingrained in you that you can't tell. Many children like I were threatened. We were threatened. My sister grew up with me. We were threatened by gunpoint. If you tell, I'll kill your sister, this or that. You are trained to be silent and just keep that shame in you. And my contention is, by the grace of God, no one should have to live with that. So how do we learn we don't have to live with that unless other people share their journey and say, this happened to me. Okay, maybe something similar happened to you. The 11 of us all took little slightly different paths. Your path will be unique to you, but follow it. You do not have to live with this. It's not yours to keep. It's yours to give away, to give it to God, give it to the universe, and go forth with the life you were born to live. So that message is getting out there through Broken Water, and I could not be happier. We are all thrilled. The emails I'm getting, the phone calls I'm getting, like, you helped me heal a piece of myself I couldn't even look at. So that's how. And being on podcasts, sharing the book, the relevancy of getting an award makes the book more valid for other readers. So that's the plan. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about it a lot.
I love this. So, Barbara, your advice, you've said so many amazing things. Give it away. Don't hold on to it. Give it away. What is your most important piece of advice for survivors? Someone who's watching this and someone who is, 40, maybe 50 years old, who's holding on to this trauma their entire lives.
Yeah.
It's your advice.
Seek help. The hardest thing for a survivor of child abuse to do, in my opinion, is to accept the reality of what occurred. Often therapies invite you to accept the reality at the end. I say no. Accept it at the beginning. Doesn't mean you have to go into the details of everything that happened to you, re-traumatize yourself. Just say, I accept the truth of my childhood. If you could say that, accept it, and reach out for help. Your therapist, if you're religious, your minister, your counselor, support group, where you can now say, I've accepted the reality. This is no longer a fantasy I've hidden somewhere. The truth is this is what's occurred. and the right people come into your life and support you to help you speak your truth and heal your soul, you deserve that. And the first step is acceptance and reaching out for help. We're so afraid to reach out for help. What will people think? What will we be told? For example, Gabby, the first time I got brave enough to reach out for therapy, I think it was in my 20s, and I went to a psychiatrist. And I remember the scene like it was yesterday, and he was sitting behind this big wooden desk, had his glasses down on his nose, looking down on me, and I was sitting in this leather chair, and what I put in the book is I just wanted that leather chair to swallow me whole. It was so hard to just even be there. And so he asked me a question I'm sure he said 100 times a day. What was your childhood like? And somewhere in me, I got the strength to say, I was sexually abused, physically abused by my foster father. And he said to me, well, you just need to go tell him you don't want him in your life anymore and all will be well.
Oh,
Gabby, I was nowhere near addressing the amount of evil I experienced by this mafia grunt who was my foster father. So I left there, sobbed for days, and never went back. So my advice is, if you have that experience, don't quit. Try someone else who gets you. You will find the person who gets you and will help you, lead you out of all that dark, awful space.
wow. And, literally, Barbara, you practice what you preach. As you say, you've gone to therapy most of your life. And you've been a ministerial minister for 25 years.
Right.
So how did your faith guide you? And do your sisters have a similar faith, and has it helped them?
They all have their own unique, wonderful, beautiful spirituality. They're an incredibly spiritual group of women. Some within an image of Jesus, some within, I don't know what it is, but I know it's there. But I think it helped everyone get through their childhoods, all of us. My faith began really in therapy. I was raised Catholic, so I believed all of the rituals. And this is not about bashing Catholicism. I have many friends in Catholicism. There's some beautiful things about it that helped me get through my childhood. But when I was in therapy, I needed to challenge all that and find out who I really was. And so I believed in more of an interfaith and a cosmic Christ. Like Christ is in everyone I see. I see it in their eyes. I see it in their essence. And so that faith kind of spurred me on. Instead of getting my doctorate in psychology, I decided to do an ordained ministerial counselor because I could weave that into the work I was doing with my clients. And Gabby, I got busy. I got so busy I had to turn clients away, which made me sad. But it was effective to be able to bring that element into the therapeutic process of what does that mean to the client? Not to me. What does that mean to the client? How do they find that source of healing?
Barbara, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, you cite this, you have this on your site, more than 250,000 children enter the foster care system every year. Really an incredibly daunting statistic.
It's so sad.
Barbara, it is so sad. It breaks my heart. How did your childhood trauma mold who you are today? And based on that, how do you perceive the foster system?
Well, I'd like to first of all say some good things about the foster system. There are some incredible foster parents out there. And, screening them is becoming a better process every year. However, there are also still the holes in the system where children wind up in places like I did. My trauma, I would like to say you can become incredibly effective in the field if you have healed your trauma. Because then you understand from certain perspectives, what does it feel like to go through that you will never forget? But you can have the compassion without having the empty hole in your heart that you're looking for clients to fill that. That's never a good thing, right? You have to be whole, and then you can share what you have with the client. So my trauma and my therapist Donna Kitchen, taught me how to do that. She did that for me. And then I thought, oh, I want to do this for others. Just heal me. You're never 100% healed. Who is? But, in the basis of it, my heart and soul is healed, but I understand 100% what that individual's going through, even the uniqueness of their particular stories. And I think that's when you could be heart to heart with someone, soul to soul, and see them with a faith in them that they have everything in them they need to heal, and that you're happy to hold their hand on the walk. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you turned your trauma into something powerful and compassionate.
Very good. Yes.
You've driven that to help people rather than really get swallowed in that sorrow and grief.
Right.
Completely turn that around.
Right.
So Barbara, who do you think would be interested in reading Broken Water? And
oh my goodness,
who do you want to read Broken Water?
It's a vast, it's a vast audience in a way, because I think educators like students in social work could glean a lot from reading Broken Water. I think foster parents could learn a lot from reading Broken Water. Social workers could use it to inspire them in the terrible things that they deal with every day. Obviously, anyone who's had a childhood of trauma, any kind of trauma, it doesn't even have to be, sexual abuse, beatings, trauma in itself. Anyone who's been through trauma could benefit from reading Broken Water. We also deal deeply with grief and loss, because we lost several of our sisters on our journey. And imagine just finding them, and then losing them. So how do you deal with the grief of losing loved ones? So that would be the audience.
Now, are you very close with all of your sisters to this day?
Oh my goodness.
Speak with them often?
Oh my goodness, yes.
We
are as close as sisters could possibly be, Gabby. And when we get together, we become kids again. It's really true.
I'm sure.
We're silly. We dress up and parade around town. I mean, we just play games and we recapture our childhood to this day, which I would suggest anyone going through healing from any childhood trauma to embrace that inner kid in you and play with your inner child. Take your inner child out. See what that inner child missed, because you can relive it, and it's a lot more fun when you can do it when you're a little bit older and do whatever that child needs.
It's never too late, is it?
No, never.
And you showed that it's never too late to have an award-winning memoir.
I'm so excited.
So exciting. So what message can you give to other aspiring authors who think, oh, I'm too old, it's too late, I can't, I won't,
No, it's never too late. If you Google it, there's many authors out here that started what some people would like to stay later in life. I say the perfect timing of your life. Everything is like, in divine timing. If you wrote a book when you're 30 or if you wrote a book when you're 60, what's the difference if the timing is right and it's a work of art and it's recognized and you're getting a message out to people, whatever that message is you want to portray, either entertainment or what have you, just find the right people, the right editors, the right, guides to kind of help you on your journey, because why not? What else are you doing?
Are you working on anything else?
I'm writing a novel.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I'm having a lot of fun with this, and I'm finding it's a very different character, because Broken Water, I had to write what I was told, and I had to wait and see what I was told. Writing a novel, and you can just take your brain on these great adventures. And it's going to be a little bit historical as well, so I'm doing research for it. But you take your brain on these great adventures and put it all together. And it's kind of like I say, I'll hit a moment and it's kind of like something opens and I take dictation. So I can't say it's coming from me. We'll see. But it's exciting.
Oh, it sounds so exciting and cathartic. We
Mhm.
we're so happy to hear that. When do you think it'll be published, or are you really taking?
You know what? It's going a lot quicker than Broken Water did. So I don't think it'll be a 15-year
Oh,
venture.
good.
But I'm thinking a good year to get it
Okay.
right. Yeah.
That's to get it right. So, Barbara, you married your childhood sweetheart, Jim, when you were
Mhm.
19 years old.
Yeah.
Amazing. What else would our listeners be surprised to know about you?
Hmm. I used to be a floral designer.
Wow, you really have
Mhm.
worn many hats, haven't you?
I became a Dutch warm blood breeder for a while.
Wow.
Let's see what else I did. Counseling. Of course, we know the counseling story. I was a child advocate, but I think that's out there.
That's
Um,
all in there. Yeah.
I've just done so many different things, and I have the philosophy of why not try it? If you enjoy it, you might find a new part of yourself, a new piece of yourself. I've been a secretary. I've worked in the corporate world. I worked as a life coach. And that's why I think writing Broken Water wasn't like so out of my ability, because I just kind of tend to throw myself into things.
Well, it sounds
And
like you've been hearing and telling stories most of your life.
this is true. That's a good way to look at it,
Yeah.
Gabby.
Yeah. Well, you're such an inspiration, Barbara. Thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to let our listeners know that 10% of all the profits from the sale of Broken Water is given to organizations that prevent child abuse. I think that's very generous of you, and a wonderful thing for our readers to know. Where can our listeners and readers purchase Broken Water and learn a little bit more about you, because you're very interesting?
Oh, thank you, Gabby. Well, I have a website, barbaralane.info. You can go on there to learn more about myself and my sisters. You could purchase an autographed copy there, or you could go on Amazon and order it through most bookstores. Many libraries are starting to carry it as well. So you just about get it anywhere.
Terrific. BarbaraLane.com. Barbara, thank you again for sharing with us.
It's barbaralane.info.
BarbaraLane.info.
Correct.
Perfect. Barbara, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Gabby. It's been great meeting you.
Come back anytime. Come back anytime. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Listen to our upcoming podcast with Michael Dow of the Nurse Florence series and children's fiction author Eddie Burke. This is your hostess, Gabby Olzak of the Gab Talks. Until next time, keep on reading.